Good evening. Boxing, tennis, motor racing, golf, whatever your passion, we've got it covered right here on the Punter. I'm Trevor Harris, you're watching Sports Tonight, and with me tonight, as ever, Chris Graham. How are you, Chris?
Not too bad, Trevor, not too bad.
You've braved the rains to get in here, and of course the rain was causing absolute havoc at Silverstone today in free practice for the British Grand Prix. It was like a scene from, well, Noah's Ark almost.
Glastonbury, huh?
Yeah, Glastonbury, yes, yes.
It's just such a miserable summer, isn't it, the weather? I mean, I hate to sound like a 68-year-old, but for goodness sake, sort it out.
And the thing is, it makes it fiendishly difficult for punters. Because the weather in Formula One, when it's wet, we've even got thunderstorms potentially predicted for the big race on Sunday, it changes everything.
It does. It's just, you know, it really throws a spanner in the works, pardon the pun, with the rain. And you know, it's a nightmare. You have to factor this into the equation when you're making your bet this weekend. And horse racing as well, you know, with the flat racing season's been ruined by the rain. So, you know, it does cause havoc amongst the sports when you're punting on them. I
mean, if you're only going to have a punt on the actual winner of the race, obviously you can wait till Sunday lunchtime. But there are all sorts of other markets, including, of course, pole position, where effectively you're in play from tomorrow. Yeah,
I mean, what we saw today as well in the practice was just I mean, was it Romain Grosjean?
Grosjean went well,
the first practice. But you're even saying don't read too much into this, you know. And I think Lewis Hamilton won the second practice, but
he did.
You know, probably didn't glean too much information.
I don't think the Lotuses may necessarily be players this weekend, but they may be. Let's have a look at the odds then for pole position, because it's interesting. Well, Grosjean's in at 12-1 now after this morning. Lewis Hamilton threes. They're still making Sebastian Vettel the favourite at 15-8. The interesting one for me, Fernando Alonso, right out to 10-1. He actually spun his car today.
He did.
Quite dramatically too.
Yeah, it was a bad crash. Yeah. Thank goodness he's all right.
He's fine. He's fine.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, Alonso's who I fancied to win this, and I know Alan. We spoke to Alan Algar on Wednesday night. He was really keen on Alonso as well. But yeah, not a great start to the weekend for him. No?
I think Alan's sort of prime bet was Alonso on the podium. I think it was around maybe just a shade of odds around about the even money mark. He said he'd be amazed if that didn't happen. But with the vagaries of heavy rain and who knows how many pit stops and tyre changes, so many things can happen. I mean, it'll make for great television in terms of drama, but from a punter's point of view, it's fraught with danger, I think.
The bootmakers will be loving this. They'll be loving this, licking their lips, thinking there'll be absolute carnage.
Yeah, I mean, do you think a punter's strategy is almost best like, okay, I'm going to wait till Sunday lunchtime, see what the forecast is, see what it's doing, and then make a decision? Or should you maybe go the other way and think, all right, this is a different perspective on it. There might be some value around because you can get unusual results in these conditions.
I think primarily the former, but a wee bit of the latter, if that makes sense. I would definitely hang on till Sunday afternoon, get a feel for the weather, get a feel for the conditions, stuff like that. But there may be drivers out there who specialise in this kind of weather, who performed well in this weather in previous races. And if that's the case, if they're a tasty price at the moment, perhaps it's time to get involved. Right?
Let's have a look at the outright market. Interesting, actually. It sort of bears, as you would imagine, a good deal of resemblance to the pole position market. Vettel is favourite at 5-2, Lewis Hamilton at 4s, but Alonso, interestingly, is much shorter for the race itself than for pole position. And one thing that we do see so often on the wet, pole position I don't think counts for anywhere near as much as it does in perfect dry conditions, somewhere like Monaco where you can't overtake. Silverstone, when it's lashing down, anything can happen.
Yeah, it very much demeans the pole position place in this sort of weather. It definitely does. Alonso's been pushed out a wee bit. It was 11-2 when we spoke on Wednesday night. That's quite interesting. Hamilton's coming as well after his strong performance in practice 2 this afternoon. But for me, I like Alonso here. I mean, he's won twice before at Silverstone. He won it last year, I believe, and he won the last Grand Prix as well in Valencia, the European Grand Prix. So he's a guy in form. I like a driver who's won at the track before, and Alonso's done it twice.
The other guy I like on there at a big price is Jenson Button, one of the calmest men out there. also perceived to be a very good driver in poor conditions, and 14-1. I mean, obviously you can play each way on this market, and you know he's taken the checkered flag this season already once.
Yeah,
so many of them have.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a fascinating season, isn't it? It really has. Yeah, I saw an interview with Jenson Button this morning. He looked very calm. He looked very much up for it, and yeah. I tend to find Button wins when you least expect it, so maybe that could become this weekend.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I actually think, and it's probably not what the pure petrol heads want to hear, but when it's raining very hard, I reckon the actual viewing figures, not so much those at the track, but the viewing figures go that way, because you know they're going to be cars skidding around all over the place.
It's great. It's a bit like wacky races, isn't it? You just wait for Dastardly Motley to come out now. Penelope Pit Stop, or Fernando Alonso, as she's also known as. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes it exciting. I'll be honest with you, Trevor, I'm not a huge fan of the sport. I like it, and I keep an eye on it from a punting point of view, but I'm not a massive fan. But this would definitely make me tune in and be very eagle-eyed.
It'll be pure theatre, and of course the conditions. Never accuse bookmakers of not sort of finding an opportunity. They think, okay, it's going to be wet, so let's bring out a market related to the weather, and they've done that, and it revolves around the safety car. Will we see the safety car at Silverstone during a race? It's a pretty much your choice market. No is the fractional favourite at 4-5. 10-11 about yes. I mean, of the two, I think I'm going yes.
Absolutely. And generally, this kind of market, I'm pretty sure, is usually no 4-6, yes 11-10.
Yes,
that tends to be how it's priced up on your sort of average Formula Ones. But this is, I'm actually surprised at the prices. I thought yes would be a lot shorter. Because it looks like it could be carnage on Sunday. Yeah?
It's one of those markets where I just think it adds a lot of fun to it from a punting point of view. When you only need something to happen once, like in say the Super Bowl, if you're betting on whether there'll be a sack inside the first half an hour or whatever it is, you're sitting there, you're watching a race, you've had a punt on the overall winner, you might have had a punt on some other kind of podium thing, and you've had a fun bet on the safety car, and as soon as one of the commentators says, well, the rain's getting a little bit heavy, you think, right, I'm in here. It just, that's one of the great things betting can do. You don't have to bet big. It's purely a fun element. I think that's what people forget sometimes about punting. Yes, we all want to win, of course we do. But we're not putting our whole month's salary on the line here. No, it's just something to enhance your enjoyment of the sport.
Betting is fun. Let's not forget that. You know, that's why it's growing. That's why it's becoming more popular with the younger generation, because it's not exactly fun. And you're right. This kind of market is perfect for that, and it's kind of like any time goal scorer in a football match. Once that goal goes in, you've collected. It could be the first minute, it could be the 68th minute, but once it goes in, you just can sit back and get your cigar out.
I don't know whether this is just me, whether I'm a bit sick in some ways, but I've actually had some great experiences watching sport where I've had a bet, and actually in the end I've lost. But it's the thrill that it gives you. And when I tell people this who don't bet, they can't really understand it. And I'll say to them, well, what did you do on Saturday night? Well, I was, betting on this American football match. And they were like, well, we went to the theatre, we went out for dinner, and I'm like, was it good? Well, no, it was a bit disappointing. And if you look, as we've just been saying, in terms of entertainment, you spend money to go out for dinner, theatre, cinema, whatever, in exactly the same way as you'd spend money on a bet. It's a form of entertainment.
I completely agree with you, Trevor. I think a lot of younger people are thinking the same. You're paying for that experience, whether it's a winning experience or a losing experience. It's an experience, and as long as you don't put too much on it, you're losing your monthly salary.
It's the old thing about only bet what you can afford to lose. Maybe don't sort of stress that enough, but we kind of take it for granted. But that is the way to go.
Of course it is, and it's about getting a run for your money. If you get a run for your money, that's fine. You paid for that experience, and I've had, like you, I've had many losing bets where I've come away and thought that was great fun.
All right, let's have a look at the odds for the overall Drivers' Championship. We know Bet Butler was on very early with Alonso at double-figure price, so he's smirking about this, especially because this man's now favourite, albeit as narrowly as he could be. 11-5, 9-4 Vettel, Lewis Hamilton 5-4. So we got three of them separated by, well, a minuscule amount in the book, and then it's 12-1. Bar brings in the likes of Webber, Kimi Räikkönen, Grosjean, who went well today, and Jenson Button, who we've also mentioned. I mean, it's almost the top three. It's almost like a pin sticker's guide, really. I can't pick one.
No, it's very difficult. I mean, the two that I like, Sebastian Vettel. I know he dropped off the pace a wee bit, but double world champion, still young. I think he's got a big season, and I'm definitely in 94 decent shot. Mark Webber as well, 12-1.
Yeah,
I think that's a lot. It's a lot bigger than I imagined for a guy who's class, really, isn't he?
I mean, I think it actually enhances the season when you get a campaign like this that is close, with at least 3 potential winners and arguably more than that. What you don't want, either from a bookmaker's point of view or a punter's point of view, is have a guy 50 points clear at the halfway stage, and it's like you're trying to think up markets then.
Well, I mean, we saw that with the Schumacher era in the 1990s and the start of the noughties as well. It just killed the turnover in these events. I think he won the first 8 races in one season.
Something like that.
Just kills the sport from a punting point of view, and from me a spectating point of view as well.
I mean, one-sided anything is bad, but one-sided motor racing, when you know if a guy's got a superior car, he's out front, he's just going to stay there for 2.5 hours and 60-odd laps. It's almost a done deal before the get-go.
I'd rather run a marathon than watch it. It's just awful.
So let's just try and sort of summarise our sort of punting strategy for the weekend. Try and find maybe someone at a big price for the pole position market, because the conditions can make it wholly unpredictable. And as far as on the outright market, there's no reason why you can't back, if you fancied, for example, Webber, say, you can't back Webber, you can back Webber at a big price, and also back one of the favoured 3, and then you've got like a double interest.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my main strategy, if I was having a bet on this weekend, would be do a bit of research on drivers who've excelled in these conditions before. So scan the archives, have a look at drivers who've really come into their own in the rain and stuff like that, and then just take a look at what price they are. And I imagine you'll get a lot of unfashionable drivers who perhaps this is their strength, like we have in horse racing, with soft ground horses, and then get involved at what should be nice prices.
All right, well, I reckon either way there'll be some fireworks at Silverstone at the weekend. There'll also be fireworks in the ring at the weekend, because we've got the likes of Vladimir Klitschko fighting, Kell Brook and Tyson Fury as well, and we'll be looking forward to all of that right after this break. Welcome back. You're watching The Punter with myself, Trevor Harris, and Chris Graham. It's a show that we like to think packs a punch, and there's some superb boxing over the weekend. 3 fights in particular we've picked out. We'll look at Hay and Chisora as well, Chris. We're going to look at Brook Jones, Klitschko Thompson, and Fury against Madeleine, so kind of something for everybody. Kell Brook against Carson Jones. Kell Brook's very, very short, but I'm not sure it's going to be quite as easy as the odds suggest. He's about a 1 to 8 chance, something like that, I think.
Yeah, I always find the favourites in boxing tend to be a lot shorter than they should, and this is definitely an example here. I think Carson Jones, for me, has got a decent chance. I mean, I imagine Brook will win, but you're right. I think that's a very short price. So.
Well, let's bring in our boxing and betting expert, Kristian Dawson. How are you, Kristian?
Hello, chaps. Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, we're good. Just looking at this Brook versus Jones fight, I mean, Jones has got a decent record. I think he's only lost 1 in his last 19, and he hasn't been fighting just bums. He's been in with some decent fighters, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I think he is coming up against somebody who's pretty special in Kell Brook. I think Kell Brook, looking at him, he does seem to have all the tools. He looked very good against Matthew Hatton last time out, I thought. I mean, he completely dominated that fight, and I think this is a good test for Kell Brook. I mean, looking at him as well, I mean, Kell Brook's come out and said that he wants to put on a good show. He wants to produce something special here, and I think that if Kell Brook can just bring it up a level, maybe he could stop Carson Jones. I wouldn't put that out of the realms of possibility. But as you say, this is going to be a tough one for Kell Brook. But I do fancy him to prevail in this one.
How impressed have you been with Brook so far, Kristian? We know he's unbeaten, but I mean there are those that say, well, the calibre of some of those that he's fought has not been of the highest. It's sometimes difficult to get a complete handle on a boxer when the opposition hasn't been top quality.
Absolutely, and in a way his career sort of reminds me of Ricky Hatton in a way. There was a lot of people saying that Hatton should have thought a better quality of an opponent in certain parts of his career, and I think Kell Brook's now sort of starting to get to that level as well. I think that he really does need to put on a good performance here against Carson Jones. He needs to make the Americans sort of, look at him and stand up and take notice of him, I think. So I think, I can see what people are saying there, that, I'm just looking down his record now. He's been in with the likes of the Michael Jenningses, the Lovemore and Does. He did outclass Matthew Hatton, who is, well, they say sort of fringe world class. He's very much sort of, domestic European fringe world class kind of thing. But yeah, as you say, Kel hasn't really stopped anyone world class, but he needs to do a good, he needs to come up with a good performance here against Carson Jones, and then hopefully that can elevate him onto the world stage. But
Kristian, hang on there for a moment. We're just going to bring up the odds for that particular bout, and as I mentioned earlier, pretty short price about the favourite. Boxing is one of those sports. 1 to 7, in fact, the price on Brook. Jones is 5 to 1 and draws 28 to 1. It's one of those situations, Chris, where we both think, all three of us think Brook's going to win, but that's mighty short.
You've got to look at your knockout prices, or I like things like round 1 to 6 or round 7 to 12.
Yeah,
that kind of bet.
I mean, there is a school of thought, Kristian, that says Brook. Okay, a lot of observers think he might go the distance, but he wants to impress the Americans. It isn't eliminated for the IBF title. In some ways, it would do him a huge favour if it was a dynamic fight rather than a straightforward points victory.
Absolutely, and actually, interestingly enough, Kell Brook's actually come out on a few websites, and I think certainly at the press conference, and he said that he's going out to stop this kid. He wants to make a statement through this fight, and I think against Matthew Hatton, I thought he had plenty of opportunities to actually stop Matthew Hatton. I was surprised that did sort of go the distance. I think one thing with Kell Brook, he can be sort of stays in second gear almost a lot of the times during his fights. He tends to coast and cruise through them, and I think that perhaps this might bring out the best in him. I mean, Carson Jones, he has been stopped a couple of times against the likes of Alfonso Gomez and also Luciano Perez. That was quite a long time ago. So I mean, it's not going to be easy, but I think he's certainly got the ability to do it. It's just whether he actually makes good on his word and does actually go for it, I think.
All right, well, let's have a look at the odds then for the method of victory. We saw the 1 to 7, Chris, on the screen there. I think probably we both agree that's not really a working man's price. So maybe this is the other option. Brook to win by TKO 4 to 6. Points is 7 to 4. I know what Kristian was saying, and he's quite right that Brook himself has said he wants to impress, he wants to get the job done inside the distance, but 7 to 4 kind of attracts me a bit.
I've never really saw a price as big as that for points, really. I mean, generally you'll find points around the even marks.
Yeah.
Even marks. So yeah, that's very big. Yeah.
What do you think, Kristian? 7 to 4 about Brook winning on points?
Actually might be the value. I mean, if you're saying 7 to 4, the bookmaker's saying, well, it's a 36% chance to happen. I think, looking at Carson Jones's record, and Carson Jones is up for this fight as well. In Carson Jones, it's in America, so it's in Carson Jones's home country. Perhaps a 7 to 4 is a bit big. I fully expect Kell Brook to win, but 7 to 4 on points, although he has got a chance of knocking this kid out. That would be the value for me, I think. All
right, let's move on to Vladimir Klitschko fighting Tony Thompson. This fight's in Bern. It's a rematch, of course, isn't it? Because Thompson was beaten, I think it was about 4 years ago, wasn't it, by Klitschko. He's 40 years old now, Chris, almost as old as me. I mean, what's going on here? Why is this fight happening? And surely Klitschko only has to turn up to win, doesn't he?
It certainly looks that way, doesn't it? I mean, there's nothing in Thompson's record now that that would suggest that he's going to turn this over. I think that Klitschko will stop him. I really do. There's nothing here to suggest that Thompson's going to come here and bring anything new to the table. He said that he's been quoted in the press as saying, "Well, I attacked Klitschko in straight lines last time. I did it all wrong." But it was one of those fights, actually not dissimilar to Kell Brook in a way that it seemed to me that if Klitschko had just put his foot on the accelerator just a little bit more, then he would have got the guy out of there. And I think that this is pretty much the same. If Klitschko just raises the tempo just 1 or 2 notches, then I really do think he should get Tony Thompson out of there. But I mean, if Tony Thompson were to win this, it would be as big a shock to me as Douglas beating Tyson. To be honest,
I remember that very, very well, Buster Douglas, back in the early 1990, whenever that was. Let's have a look at the method of victory odds. It's interesting actually because Thompson has won his last 5 fights by way of knockout, but I'm not sure if he's been fighting bouncers outside the dog and duck. Klitschko, we know all about him. So Klitschko by TKO 2-9, by a decision 130. Thompson, you can have pretty much any price you like. Chris here in the studio, I mean, Klitschko's going to knock him out, surely, but 2-9 is short.
It's 2-9 short. You'd be looking for someone, pick around him for him to knock Thompson out. You're right, Thompson's 40 years old now. I knew a girl called Tony Thompson once. I'd take her to be Miss Tony Thompson.
All right, let's move on then to Tyson Fury's fight against Vinny Madelone. Fury's an entertaining character, to say the least, isn't he, Kristian? There may be a few non-fight fans out there who don't know much about him. Just give us the sort of your view of Tyson Fury and why he's starting to get a reputation for putting bums on seats.
Yeah, he's one of those fighters, isn't he? He brings a little bit of excitement to the table every time he comes in, and he can be a bit brash, can be a bit cocky. He winds people up, I think, a bit. I mean, I think he does it certainly in a lot better manner than Derek Chisora does, certainly. But he brings a lot of excitement, and of course there's this big talk now of Tyson Fury in against David Price. I mean, as things stand, I can't really fancy Tyson Fury to win that at the moment.
Has he been avoiding Price, Kristian? Because that's what everyone's saying.
Yes, I think he has. I think that Fury's team realised that this is not the time to put their man in with Price just yet. I think that and I think they're quite right, really. I mean, Tyson Fury's he's 24 years old. Just looking down his record, I mean, he's only had the 18 fights. I think that's one that they could build up down the line and really build it up for a mega fight. Tyson Fury, for me, still needs to improve in some ways, and I think that's one very much for further on down the line. All
right, let's have a look at the odds then for this fight. I mean, Madelone's certainly been talking a good fight. He has actually been in the ring with some decent boxers, including Holyfield, but at the odds he's given no chance whatsoever. He does have a reputation as being an exciting fighter. He's 8-1 if you want a speculative punt. Fury at 1-18 is clearly unbackable. And the draws a 40-1 chance. Maybe one to watch, I suspect, or as Chris said earlier, you could play the round-by-round betting. That's 9 o'clock, by the way, in Clevedon, Somerset on Saturday. I want to move on to this David Haye, Derek Chisora fight, Kristian, because, I mean, my first question to you, frankly, is this. Should this fight even be happening at all?
In my opinion, no. I think that what's happened is two people have come together and essentially being rewarded for bad behaviour. That's my opinion of it. I mean, I was almost expecting this this fight to be promoted under the title of Who's Got the Bottle after what happened in Germany.
That's very good.
I mean, I think that I think that it doesn't do boxing any favours at all, and I think that those people who are calling for it to be banned, they've only got to take a look at that, and it gives them every bit of ammunition to do so. Personally speaking, I don't think this fight should be taking place whatsoever. I completely sympathise with the board's position here. It's not really one that excites me too much, to be quite honest.
All right, well, bearing in mind the fact that it is taking place, whatever we think about it, of course sanctioned by the Luxembourg Boxing Federation, before this thing all shook up. Let's have a look at the prices for this fight. No surprise that they make David Haye the favourite. He's the man with the pedigree. Chisora, of course, was in with Klitschko. That preceded that bust-up in Munich. No surprise, Kristian, that David Haye is a big odds-on favourite. He's 3-1 on. I can't help thinking, and I know you take it on trust a little bit, that he's back to somewhere near a reasonable level of fitness. But at 3's on, we've seen some of the other prices tonight, much, much bigger odds on. It ought to be a put it down, pick it up, oughtn't it? Because, he's clearly a classier fighter than Derek Chisora. Yeah,
he is. It's interesting as well. I mean, funnily enough, I'm a pal of Spencer Fearham's, and Spencer, said on his Facebook page that he'd seen David Hay in training and said that David Hay looked very, very sharp indeed. So I mean, he's clearly training hard for this, and is obviously taking it seriously. Chisora, there's talk that there's been problems in his camp and stuff like this. I mean, I think that this one will probably go the distance. I think that perhaps Hay on points is maybe the percentage call here. I think that Chisora is a very determined opponent. He's managed to go the full 12 rounds, with the likes of Tyson Fury, with the likes of Klitschko as well. I would be surprised if David Hay was able to get him out of there. But I mean, I expect Chisora to provide pretty dogged resistance in this at least.
All right, well, let's have a look at the prices for that then, because it's interesting. I think maybe those who don't want to play at odds on are more likely to play on this market. We've kind of split it into these possibilities, as we all seem to fancy Hay. Rounds 1 to 6, 11-4. Rounds 7 to 12, 9-2. Hay on points, 7-4. And Hay by TKO, same price. So you seem to be veering along around the 7-4 mark there, Kristian, for Hay to win on points.
Yeah, that would be my fancy in it. It's an interesting fight. I mean, it's one of those that if Chisora could, find a bomb, then he could sort of, he could make it interesting. But I'm with you on this. I think that despite Hay's, inactivity and stuff, I think he probably is just a little bit better than Chisora. And I think that if he boxes a clever fight, doesn't stay in front of him for too long and moves, then I think he should win. But I'd be very surprised if he knocked him out, so the points would be my call.
All right, okay. Just in case those of you at home think we're being unfair to Chisora, we can bring up the odds now for his potential method of victory. And as you would expect, those prices are significantly longer than those for his opponent because he's the outsider. 13-2 rounds 1 to 6. Similar price, just a little bit shorter for 7 to 12. Points win is a 5-1 shot. I don't see that. And Chisora by TKO 4-1. They've sold 28,000 tickets for this, Kristian, apparently. The fight's at Upton Park in a week's time. I suppose no surprise they've had success selling tickets. And apparently it's been beamed live to the States as well. I'm a little saddened by the level of interest, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, I've heard people in sort of, in boxing circles say that, this should just be relegated to a car park, and if they want to do it, they should, just get on and do it without anyone watching. But, I mean, it does, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, it's that they say it wasn't a publicity stunt, and I genuinely don't think it was. But I mean, it seems to me that that if you want to get a big fight, then if you do kind of act like this, then that's the way to get it, really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, listen. Thanks for joining us tonight, Kristian, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to you again next week as that fight draws ever nearer. And of course, we've got the Amir Khan fight that weekend as well. But for now, thanks very much indeed.
My pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Kristian Dawson from Boxing and Betting. Genuine expert on the sport and the odds as well. Right, coming up after the break, we've got all the best bets on the French Open, and we'll have news of a very big move in the market as to where Robin van Persie might be playing next season. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Sports Tonight, and we're on the Punter, hoping to give you the best bets for the coming weekend. We've got the French Open golf in play, Chris. Obviously not too long to go until the Open, as we like to call it. What's happening in the French Open? Who's at the head of the affairs there?
Soren Hansen at the moment is leading the way. Good round from Francesco Molinari. They've got 68 today. He's 3 under, but very windy conditions, and the overnight leader was Kristian Nielsen, who is probably his best ever round, really. He's never really won a competition before, so it's all about Westwood for me, really. He was the strong favourite, and he's not a bad round yesterday, but he started off really well. He's 3 under after 11 holes today, so it's all about Lee for me here.
All right, let's have a look at the current betting then for the French Open, and as you say, Westwood is at the head of affairs at 5-1. Molinari you mentioned, Hansen at 8. Thongchai Jaidee is an excellent player from Thailand. Had a victory fairly recently,
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
And Ian Poulter frustrates me so much because he's such a good player.
Yeah.
You watch him in Ryder Cups, he's magnificent, but somehow in tournaments when it matters, when the heat's on, he just can't seem to find it.
I think that's redolent of a lot of European players. I mean, who've no won a major. You know, how many, you know, Westwood's no won a major, Luke Donald's no won a major. You know, it seems to be when the heat really is on, they tend to step away from the fire.
I don't suppose too many clues from this tournament so far as the Open is concerned in a couple of weeks' time.
No, I mean, I guess next week's the Scottish Open, which is a better guide there. Of course, just say it's Anders Hansen who's in the lead there. It's no Soren's brother, if you like. I just presumed it was Soren, but it's Anders Hansen who's leading there. But you're right, yeah, we're all gearing up towards the Open, and I saw you were talking to Nigel earlier in the week, and Tiger was quite a short price to win it, but my feeling, my very early gut feeling moment for the Open is it's just very, very hard. It's like in the 70s and 80s and 90s, all the best players will win it. Faldo, Ballesteros, Watson and Nicklaus before that. Now though, some of the winners recently, we've had Todd Hamilton, Ben Curtis, Louis Oosthuizen, Darren Clark last year. So it's a punter, it's a minefield, so it takes a lot of research to find the winner.
We'll have to get Flash Gordon Watson on the case. His golf records. But if you've not seen Flash, he's on our late show quite often, and he's a bit of a golf betting guru. So we might press gang him into a corner and get his tips and pass them on to you. I want to talk about Robin van Persie because there's been huge amounts of publicity today. This story shows no signs of shifting from the back pages. It might tomorrow with Andy Murray, but we'll see. But the longer this saga goes on, the more likely it looks, as most of us think anyway, that he's going to move, that Arsenal can't keep him there. Yeah,
you'd imagine in the next 2-3 weeks he'll be gone. I mean, it's a huge blow for Arsenal, but for me, not entirely unexpected. Like I said last night, I'm a bit surprised at the negativity towards him. I think he deeply loves Arsenal. I think he deeply loves living in London, and I think this is a decision. It's really pained him, but he's an ambitious guy and he wants to win trophies.
Well, there was a school of thought that suggested Manchester City was probably the favoured option for Robin van Persie, but John Cross of the Mirror and friend of Sports Tonight, of course, wrote a very strong piece this morning suggesting that Juventus are the favourites to sign Van Persie, and we've got John on the phone now. How are you, John?
Yeah, very good, thanks.
Good. So Juventus, according to your piece, are poised to sign Van Persie. Are you sticking to that?
Well, I wouldn't say poised to. I would say that they're probably leading quite an open race at the moment. I think Manchester City have long been assumed the obvious choice. They've got money, they've got the Premier League title in the bag, they're going to mount a serious challenge for the Champions League next season, and also they pay huge wages. I think what massively counts against Manchester City at the moment is that, from what I understand, the hierarchy at the club are making it absolutely clear to Roberto Mancini that he must sell before he can buy, and he must offload strikers that, frankly, we've probably all forgotten about. I mean, do you remember Rocco Santa Cruz, whatever happened to him? But he's still on their books. He's still got a year left on his contract. They've got players like Carlos Tevez, Zinchenko, who's anxious to get away. And look, let's be honest, you know, if they get Van Persie in, Van Persie, Aguero, Balotelli, who lit up Euro 2012, didn't he? Those three guys have got to be, you know, capable of really being sort of City's chosen strike force. So that means they've got to get rid of the others. I mean, they've got another sort of Swedish sensation, John Guetti, coming back from a loan spell as well. So I think City have got a lot of work to do before they can make real headway into signing Robin van Persie. And don't let's forget also that probably what counts against City is the bad blood between the clubs in the past. There's no two ways about it. Arsenal would prefer not to sell to City.
There was an amazing stat in your piece, John, I thought, that you said that Dzeko, Adebayor and Santa Cruz, they earn £20.5 million between them for a year. I mean, that is unbelievable. And none of them are anywhere near the first team.
No, that's right. I think Adebayor has got a really good chance of joining Spurs in the next couple of weeks. And so that'll be one to look out for. That's obviously well signposted because they obviously had him on loan. He did relatively well. If they can then sort of justify that in terms of the contract, then I'm sure he'll go there. So that's one off the list. But there's so many more to get rid of at City. They've just been stockpiling players, and suddenly they've woken up to the fact that it's not just a management decision, but it's financial fair play as well. So they've got a lot of hoops to jump through. Whereas Juventus are in a position whereby they are desperate for him. They can do the deal quite easily. They can do it quite quickly. They want to make a stellar signing. They're the champions of Italy. Also, don't forget, of course, that coming from it from a different angle, for an English player, I think the Premier League is the be-all and end-all. And for someone like Robin van Persie, he looks at Zlatan Ibrahimovic, for example, who's been fantastic for Milan. And Italian football is still a great prestige, for a lot of foreign players. Whereas in England, we think of the Premier League as the ultimate. Well, the Italians are now trying to sort of plough money into it, improve the league, and stellar signings like Robin van Persie will help them do that.
Fascinating stuff. Listen, John, as ever, thanks very much for coming on the show. It's very, very good information potentially for punters. I'm sure we'll speak to you again soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, John. Let's have a look at those odds because, bear in mind what John was just saying. OK, he didn't say they're poised to sign him, but what he did say was, in his opinion, they were leading the race to sign him, in which case those odds make no sense at all. Man City 2's on, Juventus 9-2. Well, fill your boots.
Well, yeah, exactly. But, we're getting conflicting messages. I mean, John thinks that. And like I said last night about Ian McGarry says that the contract with City's already been signed. And
I just can't believe that. I just can't believe that. I have a feeling the other reason why I think Juventus would suit, maybe not just Van Persie, but Arsenal as well. Yeah. I think they're so angry about this, they might give an ultimatum and say, right, OK, you can go, but you can't go to another English club. If you want to go to Manchester City or United or Chelsea, fine, but you can do it next summer. If you want to go to Juve, Real Madrid, wherever abroad, on your bike now, we'll take the 20 million. Yeah,
and you'd like to think Van Persie's quite a principled guy. I think he's a nice guy, and he knows how much it would hurt Arsenal fans for him to go and play against them for Man City. That would really hurt Arsenal fans and tarnish his legacy all time at the Emirates. So I think he's bearing that in mind. So you wouldn't be too surprised if he went to Juventus. Man City's pretty short for me.
Well, a lot of the newspapers are speculating that Van Persie may be the start of another exodus from the Emirates. Another player that's been linked with, what's that famous phrase they use? A want-away player, Theo Walcott. Now, Walcott is not going to attract the same interest, clearly, as Robin van Persie, but there are suitors. Chelsea have been interested in the past. I don't think he'll be short of a different club to join if he does decide to go. There is a market on it. What's your feeling about Walcott? Because he is very close to Van Persie.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't read any of the quotes today that have come out for that. I saw a couple of tweets.
I think he's keeping stum. I think it's more kind of just speculation. He's a big mate of Van Persie. RVP's on his bike. Will he follow him out the door?
Yeah, I think it's a non-story for me. I think he'll be at Arsenal in August, definitely. There's never really been any speculation towards him. I mean, perhaps, I don't know, the only way left if Arsenal were to sell him rather than him deciding to leave. Because he seems to split the fans down the middle. Some like him, some really don't like Theo Walcott at all. But I'd be stunned if he wasn't at Arsenal in August.
Well, the odds suggest that he will still be at the Emirates. He's 1-4 to stay at Arsenal, 11-4 to go. I think yes is likely, but you may not want to play at that price.
A lot of worse 1-4 shots than that.
Yeah,
I think that's a cracking bit. Get stuck in. Empty the bank now.
Yeah, find another couple of decent ones to double it with or treble it with and be in business.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break there. Now, as you may know if you've watched the show regularly this week, we've had a kind of an Olympic element every day, and we think we might have found a really good bet on the Olympics. We'll tell you all after this break. Welcome back. You are watching the final part of the Punter on Sports Tonight. And you may know that all week we've had something of an Olympic theme to the show. And we're going to carry that on because one of my guilty pleasures in the summer is the triathlon. And it's an event at which Britain has an outstanding chance of success, not just in the men's event, but in the women's event too. And don't just take my word for it. On the phone we've got Liz Barrett, Deputy Editor of the 220 Triathlon magazine. Liz, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Perhaps you could just hopefully back me up by telling our viewers who may not be particularly knowledgeable about triathlon how good the Brownlee brothers are. Alistair and Jonathan are currently favourites, I think, to be gold and silver, probably in that order, in about a month's time.
Absolutely, yes, they are the number 1 and 2 in the world at present. Whenever they race together, you're pretty much guaranteed to see them crossing the line. If not together, then certainly 1 and 2. Jonathan this year has had 2 wins at the start of the season without Alistair there present, granted, followed up with 2 silvers with Alistair racing. So it's looking pretty good for a 1-2 at the Olympics, I'd say.
Yes, and if our viewers want a form line, Alistair, of course, as you mentioned, was injured with that Achilles problem, came back in Kitzbühel. I was there in Austria, and I mean, he won by, I'm not sure what the margin was, half a minute. He could have won by half an hour if he'd wanted to. He was absolutely superb. And that was his first race back from injury.
It was. He actually did a sprint triathlon at Blenheim a couple of weeks prior with his brother again, and they crossed the line actually arm in arm. And then he followed that up, like you say, at Kitzbühel, and it was as if he'd never actually been injured. It looks like he'd come back even stronger because of that time off. He'd been able to focus on other areas of his sport, and now he is invincible. I mean, it's hard to say that actually in this sport. There are some, you can never say for definite, but the odds are, he's tipped for gold.
Yeah, listen, I completely agree with you. Invincible is a good word, I think. I am pretty as sure as you can be in sport. You can never be 100% sure, of course. If he doesn't crash on the bike, I think he wins. Now, let's have a look at the prices. Obviously, he's favourite. We know he's going to be a shortish price. But we've seen tonight already, when we're looking at some of those boxing bouts, that we were talking about 1 to 6, 1 to 18 in one case. Brownlee is nowhere near that. If we can have a look at the odds on the men's triathlon, you'll see exactly what I mean. Well, he's 8 to 13 now. Now, I tell you what, that price has been absolutely hammered. I got on at 5 to 4. I was talking to you about it. That was only, I don't know, a week ago. His brother Jonathan's 11 to 4. Javier Gomez 8 to 1, the Spaniard. Richard Murray, he's got no, let me tell you, he can't win. And nor can Brikankov. They cannot live with Brownlee on the run unless he's out of the race somehow. Phenomenal chance. I actually think, Liz, that if the Brownlees do come first and second, the publicity that will have, not just for the sport, but for the sort of British Olympic feel-good factor, because I reckon 2 brothers, gold and silver, that'll stick them on the front page as well as on the back page.
Oh, absolutely. It's an editor's dream that the brothers, they're so commanding when they race together, and they're such affable blokes as well. They're so easy to talk to, and are great personalities for the sport as a whole. So absolutely expect to see their faces absolutely everywhere if they do take a 1-2.
I want to talk to you about the women's event, Liz, because much as I'm a huge patriot, Helen Jenkins is the favourite. She's a British girl. Value-wise, I don't think she's anywhere near as much of a certainty as Alistair Brownlee is. What's your sort of reading of the women's triathlon event, which is actually the first event, isn't it? It's on the 4th of August.
It is. Yeah, it's like you say, it's a lot closer to the women's event. She's not a sure bet. There's quite a few of them. I'd say there's at least 5 that have got a very, very good chance of getting the gold. There's also Nicola Spirig, Switzerland. She's been extremely strong this year. She's won 2 of the World Championship Series races. Followed up, we've got the American team. All 3 are extremely strong, but I think the favourite there would be Gwen Jorgensen. We've got Andrea Hewitt, Kiwi. Never rule her out. Fantastic performance, very consistent. Erin Densham, back on form, beats Helen in the first race of the season in Sydney, and she's the only one to have done that this season. So it's tight. Helen's got the consistency. She has, got a silver and a gold this year. She's looking good, but she hasn't got the sprint speed. Yeah, that's her downfall there. But fingers crossed, all will come good on the day, and she won't have to worry about a sprint at the end.
Can't disagree with a word you've said. Let's look at the market, because I have got a view on this as well, and I kind of maybe look at it from a punting point of view rather than obviously Liz wanting British success, which we all do. Here are the prices. Jenkins is 6 to 5. Nicola Spirig is 9 to 2. You heard Liz just say how impressive Jenkins has been, but Jenkins has not raced against Spirig so far this season. Spirig's just come back. She won in Kitzbühel when Jenkins took that race off. She didn't need to run. So that is a massive battle. Yeah, Paula Findlay, magic on her day, but she's been out injured for a long time. There is still question marks about her fitness. And Andrea Hewitt is a 12-1 chance. What do you think about Spirig League? I mean, I think Spirig is the biggest danger to Helen Jenkins.
Absolutely. I would totally agree. I witnessed her run through in Madrid, and it was quite tight at the finish again, but she is phenomenal, and again, such a lovely girl. She could quite well, bring home a medal for Switzerland. It's very, very tight to call with the women's. Again, you mentioned Paula Findlay, but the injury is very hard to say what her form is. She hasn't raced this year, and I can't see her making that first pack on the bike. So it's definitely between Spirig and Jenkins.
All right. Listen, Liz, fantastic. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we might talk to you again when Britain has a full clutch of medals come the 8th of August.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. That was Liz Barrett. She's deputy editor of the 220 Triathlon magazine. Now, very briefly, Chris, you've spotted. We like to alert punters to a potential Rick.
Yeah, we
and
do.
very quickly you found one. You think?
Very, very quickly. There's a game in the Brazilian Serie B tonight, so second division in Brazil.
Yep.
The team who are top of the league played 8, won 7, drawn 0, lost 1, in absolutely amazing form, going for a 5th win in a row, up against a team in 10th place in the league. Yet the team at the top are 100-30. I would have went 6-4, but they've got 100-30.
What's the name of the team?
The name, bear with me, the pronunciation's a bit difficult. Kriokuma. I got this guy called Ed Mallion, who's a South American expert.
And they're away to which team?
They're away to Chiera. So Serie B, that's the second division in Brazil. It comes to a guy called Ed Mallion who knows his stuff in South American football. Get on!
Kriokuma is the advice from Chris Graham. You heard it here first, remember? And we'll hold him to it because he's back tomorrow when we are back as well. And what will we be spotlighting? Even if I can get my words out, well, you don't have to guess at all, do you? Because Andy Murray is through to the Wimbledon men's final. He will play Roger Federer on centre court on Sunday. We will have every single market covered tomorrow at 7 o'clock. From Chris and from me and from our whole team on the Punter. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.